This week on Anxiety Slayer, we're talking about something we get asked a lot: how to live well when anxious thoughts are breaking into our mind. Welcome back, Ananga.
Hey, Shan.
I'm really glad that we're speaking about how to live well when you have an anxious mind. I think all too often we let anxious thoughts cast a shadow over what really could be a good day.
Yeah, sometimes I've looked back over the years through my journal and I can see beautiful days where I know my mind was taking me on a ride. And I can see some of those days I had a handle on it and I managed to have a sweet day. And others, when I look back, I know that that day was really overshadowed and I was keeping it under my hat. So I wasn't disturbing the people I was with, but I was in my own little kind of anxious bubble.
Mm.
Something I've been working with very actively over recent years, looking at how that can affect us. And really, nothing changed that my mind was projecting. It was literally a mental shadow cast over a nice day.
And that's where practicing ignoring those unwelcome thoughts comes in so beautifully, because the more you practice ignoring them, the easier you can get on with your day. And if you fight them, it makes those thoughts even worse. And especially when you believe the thoughts, that definitely makes things worse.
Either way energizes the anxiety, fighting with it or believing it.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely suffer more when we believe the mind's propaganda. What I've learned is we need to be in good shape, good mental shape to be able to do that. We need some mental strength, either from practices, taking real good care of ourselves, good, strong company, good reading.
Mm-hmm.
We need buoying up. Ayurveda teaches we have these different levels in the mind, and there's the part of the mind that is there accepting and rejecting everything. I want this, I don't want that. I want this, I really don't want that. And it's the don't wants that can cause us the anxiety. And then above that of our mind is the intelligence. And when the intelligence is in good shape, it's like a good mother and it can healthily distract us or shepherd us or redirect the internal conversation. But if the mind's disturbed and strong, it overpowers the intelligence. So, in my experience and from what I've read and learned, we need to really strengthen our intelligence with good support.
Mm.
And then we can do the very simple thing of being neutral. And the most helpful word I can say to my mind is maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, that's such a teaching, to be in that space of questioning. Like, maybe it is this, but
Yeah, maybe, maybe not.
yeah.
And it's just so neutral. You know, the mind will really push it to the extent that you're on your deathbed or something. It can really go there.
Right.
And if you just say, maybe, maybe not. And I've heard people do that with little kids when they're really pushing for something they want.
One of the things that I do is catch myself and say, interesting point of view.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting point of view. You have that point of view. I don't say it out loud, but I say it to myself. I say it internally. And then that way I don't get so emotionally attached. I don't get stuck with whatever that particular thought is that's being a bully that day.
Yeah. And when you look back at those days and those thoughts, you'll often see they came to absolutely nothing.
Right. Other than to steal your joy.
Yeah.
And to basically take that day from you.
Yeah. Put you under stress,
Mm-hmm.
overshadow a good day and a good chance for connection, maybe a good chance for some healing and grounding.
Right.
That's why when I'm out in nature, I started a few years ago taking photographs because, as you know, I'd come from a series of traumatic events and one was particularly traumatic. So when I would go to these beautiful places, I got a little clip on macro lens for my camera to get as close and detailed as I could to just ground myself in the colors and the leaves and the flowers and be very present. And it really helped
Yeah, it does.
to immerse me in my surroundings and it would switch my mind off. And that's become a practice that now I just do it because I love it. I don't feel the need to do it so much now. I used to feel a need for it, like, okay, taking my little lens and I'm going to get my get my snoot in as many flowers as I can and really look at the details. Now I don't feel that that has to happen. but I like it. And I've learned to see things differently. I've learned to notice detail and appreciate things more. It's been a really good experience, but it started from trying to ground myself after trauma.
Sure. And I follow you on Instagram and really enjoy when you put up the images that you capture and can see what, whether that's the detail of a bee's wing or a flower or whatever. I always see you in that, immersing yourself in that beauty. And it's good to know that it's not necessarily being done for any other reason than that's what you see and you want to capture it.
And sometimes these days I'm about 20 steps from my front door. I'm very fortunate that I live next to a small woods and I've become very familiar with who lives in there.
Mm-hmm.
My bird neighbors, and I love them. I love them, and they've been a great company and great solace to me. So that's a beautiful thing. So, yeah, I mean, we're talking about living well with an anxious mind because we can't always erase anxiety, but we can flood it out with the good stuff and make that voice smaller.
Well, and that's where labeling comes in and can be really very helpful when you start to label your thoughts without that emotional engagement, using simple labels like thought or worry without getting into details. Just keep it like, that's interesting. That's a thought. That's a worry. I see you and now I'm moving on. I'm not going to get hooked. I'm going to keep it brief and simple and do my best to move on.
Yeah. Over time, as I've been really observing and working with my mind, I've come to notice the places and the times when it's troublesome and it increases in its energy and its unhelpful dialogue.
Right.
And it's been really helpful to be able to observe it, step back and observe it rather than feeling I'm kind of in there with my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we feel like we are our mind, but we're not. And there is a part of us that can witness and observe. And it's really helpful for me if I've got that distance and I can say to myself, this is just my mind. It's just my mind. It's not true. It's not a fact. It'll often happen when I'm preparing breakfast. That's the time for some reason, that's the time it likes to present me with something. And yeah, I've got in the habit of just saying, this is just my mind. It's not something I need to take this any further.
Yeah, that's so helpful. When I notice my mind taking over, and I have a very active mind anyway, thankfully, it's not always swimming in anxiety, but it is swimming in all kinds of things. Problem solving and decision making and just the way that it works. And so what happens when I find my mind getting dark and taking over and I like to think of it as a bully.
Yeah.
Changing my surroundings has been the most helpful. To just get out of wherever I am, get out of the chair, get out of the bed, get out of whatever it is I'm doing and change things up. But also to have that internal dialogue that how is this loop of fear-based thinking helpful? Like, this is helpful. Thank you for piping up, but shut up. I get a little sassy with that part of my mind sometimes, and I'm grateful for it because often that helps me just in that moment to say, knock it off.
Yeah, it does help. I remember years ago, one night I was in bed and my mind was really disturbing me really badly. And I just said, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And it stopped for a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And it felt like nothing could stop it on that occasion. And I remember thinking, oh, it stopped. It just gave me that pause to realize that there was a part of me that could observe it and to a degree command it. Yeah, we can just say, knock it off. How's this helpful? You're not helping.
Right. And when you notice those patterns, so much of this is patterning. It's
Yeah.
what we've created over, in some cases, a lifetime. And so you just keep practicing. You keep practicing, having the awareness of the thoughts, and then coming back to where you are with greater attention.
Yeah. and playing a different tune. You know, you and I have joked in our private conversations about our mind can be like a jukebox of horrors, you know?
Mhm.
What number are you going to punch in today and what's it going to play? But, you know, we can fill it with different records. And yeah, the mind's playing old impressions, old stories, old grudges, old hurts,
Yeah.
future worries. It causes us suffering when it's in the past, or it's in the future when we can hold it in the present. We don't suffer so much.
Yeah.
And it's in the present that we can pick a different tune to play, whether it's a good conversation, something good to read, something creative, and come back to the present with deeper attention. Again, that's what helped me with taking photos of flowers and looking at the birds. When unwanted thoughts break in, and it can feel like a hostage situation, like the mind just really crashes in. And if it does it on a peaceful moment, it can be really disturbing. But when it breaks in like that, to just come back to what we're doing with focus. We might be cooking, working, driving, having a conversation, trying to read, trying to meditate, whatever it is we're doing. If we can just really get curious about it and bring some fresh attention to it.
Yeah, and being that mindfulness space.
Yeah.
In this moment, I'm just doing this. I'm in this moment, I'm preparing a meal. That's it. Yeah, in this moment, I'm preparing my taxes. Yeah, I'm thinking of that because, yeah, in the midst of that, not that that's a joyful thing. However, if I can fully immerse in it, I actually do find some joy in ticking the boxes and getting everything done, getting it taken care of without turning it into, oh my gosh, am I going to be audited? Or
Just facing the stuff of life and getting it.
exactly facing the stuff of life and being focused on, I'm just getting this done. I'm just doing this, just in this space. And then before you know it, whatever it was that was coming up will generally just kind of float away.
Yeah, if we don't give it a chair and a cup of tea.
Yeah, right. You're not welcome here. Have to share this story. I don't know if I ever told you this. One day we were on our front porch and we saw this person walking through the village. We live in a very small village. And this person didn't belong here and was acting very sketchy and kind of like a thought that you don't want in your neighborhood or in your mind. So he stopped at our neighbor's house, and their garage faces the street, faces our front porch. And the front of their house is on the other side. So they didn't know this guy was walking around, and he was very interested in something in their garage. And so I just kept watching them. And the next thing I know, this guy is trying to steal a bike that's actually hanging in the rafters. So it's not just like grabbing a bike up against the wall and taking the bike. And I just hollered at him, get out of here. You're not welcome here. That's not yours. I was very fierce. And he ran away. And that's very much like what we're talking about here with your thoughts and your mind, and speaking up and saying, you're not welcome here. Get out of here.
Absolutely. It's a good example. The thing is with the mind, it's so subtle and so crafty, and it's such an inside job that often it's hooked us before we realize.
Yeah.
It will start offering up something for our consideration, something anxious, and then we respond.
Yeah.
So we're just watching it steal the bike.
Yeah.
Because it's so subtle and so crafty. And one of my favorite teachers on the mind, he's an expert on the Bhagavad Gita. And he says, if you watch the mind, it's like a crafty ventriloquist. And it has a way of kind of sneaking into your awareness, and then it will speak to you in the first person. He said it changes how it speaks. So it might be like, what do you think about this? How do you feel about that? And it'll have an anxious scenario, but then it switches to I and me. And then we're identified in with the thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then it escalates into a really uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
So to be able to know that is really helpful, and to be able to watch out for it and stop it. And for me, my mind will fire off thoughts in certain places in the home. It will be walking into the bathroom or prepping, as I already said, prepping food in the kitchen. If for some reason there's zones where it likes to present something, I guess the rest of the time I'm pretty occupied studying, reading, doing different things. So
right.
how creative people say they get an idea for a song in the bathroom.
Mhm.
My mind gets other ideas.
Sure.
So often as I go in the bathroom door, I will say, I'm just doing this. I'm just going to clean my teeth. I sort of declare my intention, and that's it. It's not up for negotiation.
Right.
We're not going in there to think about or do anything else. Just going to wash my hands. And if I've got an and then I'm going for a walk, then I'm going to prep lunch, then I'm going to read my book. If I've got something good after it, that helps as well.
Mm.
But you'll find there's times when the mind's just, you're going there, you're doing this. I've got something I'd like to bring to your attention. And the more it gets in those times, the more power it gets and the more we get edgy at those times.
And that's why it's so important to remember that they really are fleeting thoughts,
Mhm.
that these thoughts are very temporary and change just like the weather. They are constantly changing. So if you imagine your thoughts floating by like clouds in the sky or floating by like water in a stream, that can be really helpful as well so that you don't get stuck in that space and let those thoughts stick around even longer and gain more strength, like they do when we fixate and engage with them, whatever they may be.
Finally, what really helps is, as the title of this episode suggests, living well with an anxious mind instead of being in that place of how can I get rid of this, to not let it have control and to live well with it. The coexistence of joy, gratitude, connection, inspiration, and anxiety. And this was something I really appreciated Brené Brown spoke about in one of her books. And she said, and not but,
Mm.
that you can be having a beautiful moment and anxiety breaks in. And you might think, this is a wonderful moment, but I wish I didn't feel like that.
Yeah,
And she changed it to and. This is a wonderful moment. And she had some gratitude.
that's so powerful. 'Cause
Yeah.
then that doesn't steal your joy.
No. And it's making me think of, you might have a big gathering of good friends and maybe there's somebody there that's a little difficult. But if they haven't got the floor, you can still have that good connection, good conversations, good time with people that you love and care about.
Mm.
And the difficult person's there and they're there. But if you engage with them or you object to them, they become larger in the room. Your focus on them increases.
Oh, that's so true.
I like this idea of flooding anxiety out with good stuff. Just bringing as much, spiritual practice, meditation, inspiration, good conversations, walking in nature, and just telling anxiety, okay, if you're going to stick around, you can take a back seat. You're not driving.
Yeah. Even though you're loud and even though you're a bully, I'm still going to enjoy the connection and inspiration and all of the things that make my life beautiful. And I know you're there, but I'm going to continue to invite as much good as I can into my mind and help it fade. And it really truly is just really being aware and practicing.
This, and some days are easier than others. Some spells of life are easier than others, but it doesn't mean we've failed.
Mm.
It just means sometimes are easier than others. But there's always gold in there we can find. There are always lessons. There's always learning about ourselves, learning what helps, learning how to live more deeply and to really grow our roots. We can't stop the winds blowing, but we can grow strong roots.
Yeah. And to continue to make a commitment to this every single day, whatever you know helps you, whatever brings you to that space of more peace, more relaxation, more joy, continue your commitment there. Thanks, Ananga. I really enjoyed this conversation with you today. And thanks to our listeners. Thank you, all of you, for listening in. We're incredibly grateful that you're here for our 15th season. If you'd like additional support starting a daily calming practice, you can join our popular online course, Small Steps to Big Change, which is available on our Patreon, along with over 200 guided relaxations, tapping sessions, and classes to help you slay your anxiety. See you next week.